This video on ancient Egyptian mythology is brought to you by history's dusty shelves. They told you Anubis was the god of death, a silent figure lurking in darkness, waiting at the end of every life, watching patiently as time slowly claimed each human soul. But that story is incomplete, because Anubis was never simply death itself. He was something far more complex, something far more intimate, a presence that walked beside both life and death. In ancient Egypt, death was not feared as an ending, but understood as a transition, a fragile journey that required guidance, protection, and balance to reach the eternal world beyond existence. The Nile carried life across the land, but it also carried belief, and within that belief, the people knew that the soul needed more than hope. It needed a guardian. Long before pyramids rose into the sky, people buried their dead in shallow desert graves, trusting the sand to preserve what remained of those they had lost. But the desert was not empty, and under the cold silence of night, jackals roamed freely, drawn by scent, disturbing graves, tearing away what the living had tried to protect. This was more than physical destruction. It was spiritual terror, because without a preserved body, the soul risked losing its path into the afterlife forever. So instead of surrendering to fear, the Egyptians transformed it, turning the image of the jackal from a threat into something sacred, something powerful, something protective. From this transformation, Anubis emerged, not as a creature of chaos, but as a guardian, born directly from humanity's deepest fears and greatest hopes. His black form did not represent darkness or evil, but symbolized fertile soil, renewal, and the eternal cycle of life that followed death beneath the surface of existence. Anubis became the watcher of tombs, the silent protector who stood between the living and the unknown, ensuring that no force would disturb the sacred journey. As civilization grew, so did the rituals surrounding death, evolving into complex ceremonies designed to preserve not just the body, but the identity of the individual. Mummification became a sacred art, a precise and careful process that required knowledge, patience, and deep spiritual understanding of what lay beyond human life. Priests who performed these rituals did not act as themselves. They wore the mask of Anubis, stepping into his role, becoming the guardian in both symbol and action. Every movement mattered. Every step held meaning, because one mistake could disrupt the soul's passage and trap it between worlds, lost without direction or purpose. But Anubis's role extended beyond the physical body, reaching into a place that existed outside time, where every soul would eventually stand and face judgment. In that realm, there were no titles, no wealth, no status, only truth, stripped of illusion, revealing the essence of a person's life in its purest form. At the center of this judgment stood a scale, simple yet absolute, holding a balance that could determine the fate of a soul for eternity. On one side rested the heart, believed to be the core of memory, emotion, and truth, containing every action, every decision, every hidden intention. On the other side lay a single feather, the feather of Ma'at, representing truth, order, and the balance that held the universe together. Anubis was the one who guided the process, carefully placing the heart upon the scale, ensuring that the measurement was fair, precise, and untouched by bias. He was not a judge in the way humans understand judgment. He did not decide outcomes, but ensured that truth revealed itself without interference or distortion. If the heart was heavy, weighed down by wrongdoing, dishonesty, or imbalance, it would tip the scale, breaking the fragile harmony required for passage. and waiting nearby was Amit, a terrifying being formed from the most dangerous creatures known, ready to consume any soul that failed to achieve balance. To be devoured by Amit was not punishment, but erasure, a complete end, where the soul ceased to exist, leaving no trace behind in any world. But if the heart remained light, equal to the feather, then the path opened, and the soul could continue its journey into the afterlife, guided forward. In that moment, Anubis did not celebrate or mourn. He simply fulfilled his role, maintaining the balance that defined existence itself across both worlds. This idea carried a powerful message, one that reached far beyond ancient Egypt and continues to echo through human thought, even in the present day. Because the weighing of the heart represents something deeply human, a reflection of the idea that our actions carry weight beyond what we can see. It suggests that truth is not something external, but something carried within, quietly accumulating over time, shaping who we are at our core. Anubis, in this sense, is not just a god of the dead, but a symbol of awareness, a reminder that nothing is ever truly hidden from the balance. Over centuries, religious beliefs shifted, and other gods rose to prominence, with Osiris becoming the ruler of the underworld and central figure of the afterlife. Yet even as roles changed, Anubis remained present, never losing his importance, because the journey into the unknown always required a guide. He became the constant figure at the threshold, the one who ensures that every soul begins its final passage with order rather than chaos. His presence is quiet but absolute, not demanding worship or fear, but representing something inevitable, something that cannot be avoided or ignored. Even today, thousands of years later, his image continues to capture attention, appearing in art, stories, and modern imagination as a mysterious figure. But beneath that mystery lies a deeper connection, because Anubis represents a question that every human eventually asks in one form or another. What happens when everything is stripped away, when there are no distractions, no identities, no roles, only the truth of who we have been? The concept of being weighed, measured, and revealed is not just ancient mythology. It is a reflection of an internal human experience. We constantly evaluate ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, measuring our actions against our own sense of right and wrong. In this way, the story of Anubis becomes timeless, not tied to a single culture or era, but connected to something universal within human nature. He does not chase, he does not threaten, he does not interfere. He simply waits, existing as a presence that acknowledges the inevitability of truth. This is what separates him from many other figures associated with death, because he is not driven by control, but by balance and clarity. He does not impose judgment, but reveals it, acting as a mirror rather than a force, reflecting back what already exists within each individual. And perhaps that is why his image feels so powerful, because it touches something deeper than fear, something closer to understanding. When you imagine standing before the scale, there is no audience, no performance, no escape, only a quiet moment of absolute honesty. In that moment, Anubis is not an enemy or an ally. He is simply there, ensuring that the process unfolds as it should. He represents the idea that truth does not need to be enforced, because it naturally reveals itself when given the space to do so. As the centuries passed and civilizations changed, the physical rituals surrounding death evolved, but the underlying ideas never fully disappeared. The need for meaning, for understanding what lies beyond life, and for believing that actions matter has remained constant across human history. Anubis stands at the intersection of these ideas, connecting the physical reality of death with the abstract concept of truth and balance. His story reminds us that while life may be unpredictable, chaotic, and filled with uncertainty, there is still an underlying order that exists. Not an order imposed by force, but one created through the accumulation of choices, actions, and intentions over the course of a lifetime. And in the end, that is what defines the journey. Not where it begins or where it ends, but what is carried along the way. Anubis does not determine that journey, but he ensures that it is seen clearly, without distortion, without illusion, without escape. So when people say, "He is the god of death," they miss something essential, something that changes the entire meaning of his existence. Because Anubis is not the end of life, and he is not the beginning of death. He is the moment in between, where everything becomes visible. He is the silence before truth, the stillness before understanding, the presence that exists when all distractions fall away. And when the final moment comes, when the heart is placed upon the scale and the feather rests opposite it, there is no fear in him. There is only certainty, a quiet assurance that whatever happens next is not random, but the result of everything that came before. In that sense, Anubis is not watching the dead, he is witnessing truth. And truth, once revealed, defines what comes next. So perhaps the real question is not what Anubis does, but what we carry with us when we finally stand before him. Because in the end, it is not death that defines a person, and it is not the afterlife that shapes their existence. It is the weight of their own heart, measured not by others, but by the balance they have created within themselves over time. And when that moment arrives, when everything is laid bare and nothing remains hidden, Anubis will be there, just as he always has been. Not as a force of fear, not as a symbol of darkness, but as the silent guardian of truth, standing at the threshold of eternity, for ages to come. If you want to discover what happens next, stay with history's dusty shelves, where the past is never truly forgotten.